Hello students, this is Fabia Inam and today we are going to talk about a new topic which is writing persuasive messages. Okay, so far we have learned about writing various kinds of messages from good news to bad news. So persuasive message is also very important and especially in the business world, how to sell your product or how to pitch your product. So that's why persuasive messages are very important, and also it's also very difficult to actually encourage or persuade someone to buy your product. Okay, so in here we will look at some of the format or structure of how you can do it, and hopefully you will be able to write down some good persuasive messages by the end of this chapter. Okay, so let's move on. So these are some of the learning objectives that we are going to talk about. As usual, the writing three-step writing process. So I'm not going to waste too much time on that because we have already know the process from the very beginning, planning, writing, and completion. Then we also have to talk about the ways of credibility, establishing credibility in persuasive message, and AIDA model, which is attention, interest, desire, and action. And so I think some of you are already familiar with the AIDA model. And then there are obviously persuasive message as any other approaches. So it has its own emotional and logical appeals, and so you need to have a balance between it. You can't be too emotional or you can't be too logical about it. So you need to have a clear balance of how to write the message, then some of the essential steps, and as well as you also have to think about some ethical things as well when you want to persuade something or encourage someone to buy your product. So we also have to be ethically sound. Okay, so the three-step process, we have already talked about it, but the first thing that comes in our mind is persuasion. Okay, so what you are going or what we are going to do in the persuasion. So persuasion there are two ways of doing it. One is you have to asking for something of value. Okay, so why would you pursue? Okay, or why would you encourage someone to buy your product? So it has to be a product which has some value, এবং it has to be the audience has to take action regarding it. Even if we think about in our normal, like not normal, the new normal, I might say, in this situation, like now most of the people, they are not wearing masks, or they might not using the hand sanitizer, or the things that you should take the prevention measures to avoid COVID. So that's why persuasion or telling them to do these kinds of things and persuade them to do it. So it's also very difficult, but you also have to do it relentlessly. Okay, then of course plan the message. So obviously you have to analyze the situation first, what kind of situation you are so whether you want to go with an emotional approach or whether you want to go with a logical approach. So the situation, then you need to gather the information about the situation as well as the product itself. So the more you know about your product, the features and the benefits of it, the more you can actually persuade someone and to buy your product. If you don't know much about your product, you are not even confident about the product, so the other people won't buy it. Okay, so that's why it's very important to know as much as possible about your product, your the product strength or the weakness, even the weaknesses. Okay, so gather all sorts of information on regarding the product. Then select a medium. We will talk about these kinds of things in much more detail later on. So select medium, like in which way you are actually communicating with your or audience or with your customers, whether it's face to face or whether it's through TV ads or whether it's through radio ads or whether it's through leaflets or other promotional activities, or let's say promotional activities through YouTube or social media. Okay, so select your medium, so that is very important. And also it depends on whose your audiences are. Okay, so what's the age range and the psychological behind it, so we are going to talk about it in later in details. Okay, then organize your information, what you want to say. Okay, so when you do the any kinds of presentation, we make a preparation, and because there is this time limitation, so we make the preparation of how we are going to say it. So that's why it's very important to organize the information. You talk about a little bit about your organization, you talk a little bit about much more in detail about your products and the features, then you talk about the strengths of it, and you talk about maybe the competition, and recommendation and suggestion, and there are other stuff about it. Okay, so you organize your information, then you pitch the message to the audience. Okay, so analyze the situation that we already talked about in the first place, like who's your audience, the demography. So age, gender, occupation, income level, all these things, actually elements or factors that actually comes under demography. So whether your audience is educated or not, or how old are they, or maybe the gender, maybe the occupation. So all these kinds of things plays a very significant amount of influence. Okay, so that's why it's very important to know the demography of your audience. Then come the psychographic, like what's their hobbies, what's their lifestyle, what's their preferences. So these are the key issues that you should think before or pitching a product. Okay, then comes the motivation, whether your customer is already motivated to buy the product, or whether they are interested to buy the product, or you are actually starting from ground zero. Okay, so if you see whether you can আপনারা দেখবেন যখন when we go to a shopping mall, or even when we do the grocery, আমরা যখন কোনো আইলের সামনে দিয়ে একটু অনেকক্ষণ ধরে হয়তো বা প্রোডাক্টগুলো দেখছি বা ব্র্যান্ড দেখছি, সো সেলস পারসন সবসময় আমাদের কাছে আগায় এসে বলে হাউ ক্যান আই হেল্প ইউ, লাইক হোয়াট ইউ আর লুকিং ফর, things like that. Okay, so these are the things যে you have to analyze the situations of the sales people আপনাকে দেখে বুঝতে পারছে যে you are interested in buying something, and so that's why the salesperson is asking you, like, how can I help you? So motivation and the psychographic things actually helps a lot. Then obviously the purpose is আপনার what's the why are you buying this, then and whether you take the decision rightly, or whether you take time to take a decision on that. So অনেকে আছে যে যেমন আছে যে পছন্দ হলে কিনে ফেলে, আবার অনেকে আছে না আমি একটু ঘুরে দেখি তারপর I will buy it. So সেই ক্ষেত্রে আপনার the whole sales pitch will be a bit different, all these kinds of things. Then the change attitude, so আপনার দেখা গিয়েছে যে behavioral patternটা কিরকম, so that is also very important. Okay, then gather information, and যেটা already বললাম যে information on the knowledge about the product, then what are the beliefs of the people and the emotions related with that, whether the product makes you feel happy, or whether the product makes you feel sad or angry. So products or the brands, sometimes they give these kinds of emotions in us. So যেমন ধরেন ice cream or chocolates, these kind of products always make people happy. Or so এগুলো দেখা গিয়েছে যে অনেক সময় আছে product makes you feel a bit more sophisticated, maybe a good watch, or so এগুলো দেখা গিয়েছে the products or brands actually make come up with lots of emotions. So এগুলো gather the information as much as you want, or as much as you can, and then you should pitch to them. Okay, then select a medium, যেটা already বললাম যে whether you send an email, whether you are sending a newsletter, whether you are going through the social media, or whether you're doing a personal attention, doing public relation, and or talking to a person, or any kinds of other technological reach. So that is very important. So in here demography plays a very significant role, because at a certain age এর উপরে দেখবেন যে যেমন if I talk about my parents, okay, so তাদের ক্ষেত্রে কিন্তু আপনার এই সোশ্যাল মিডিয়ার থ্রুতে কোনো প্রোডাক্ট যদি আপনি অ্যাডভার্টাইজমেন্ট বা পারসিউ করেন, it will be very difficult for those people to actually receive the message in the first place, as well as ওদেরকে আপনার কনভিন্স করাটা ডিফিকাল্ট হবে, বিকজ দে আর অলমোস্ট লাইক 65+ years old, সো ওরা কিন্তু আপনার এই সোশ্যাল মিডিয়ার সাথে মানে ওদেরকে ওটার উপর অতটা বেশি ডিপেন্ডেন্ট না বা রিলাই করে না। সো ওদের জন্য দেখা যাচ্ছে নিউজ পেপারে অ্যাডভার্টাইজমেন্টস অর আপনার কোনো ম্যাগাজিনে অ্যাডভার্টাইজমেন্ট বা টিভিতে অ্যাড ইজ মাচ মোর ওর অ্যাপ্লিকেবল ফর দেম। বাট আপনি যদি ইয়াঙ্গার জেনারেশন বা আপনাদের কথাই বলি, সো আপনাদের ক্ষেত্রে আপনার ফেসবুক বলেন, ইউটিউব বলেন, সো এগুলোর ক্ষেত্রে আপনার দেখা যাচ্ছে সোশ্যাল মিডিয়াতে অ্যাডভার্টাইজমেন্ট ইজ মাচ মোর ফ্রুটফুল দ্যান দ্য আদার মিডিয়া। Okay, so select the medium very wisely. So it's এবং it also depends on the budget of your organization. Okay, not every organization needs to have a TV ad. TV ad is very expensive. If so TV ad যে আপনার সবকিছুতে করতে হবে তা কিন্তু না। Okay, so that's why organization to organization it also varies, is যে আপনি কোথায় দিচ্ছেন। Okay, then comes organize the message. So organize the message যেটা আমরা বললাম যে it can be both direct and indirect approach. Okay, so it depends on you how you want to write it down. So whether you want to apply the direct approach or whether you want to apply the indirect approach. So obviously audience focus, you have to think about the audience first. Then there is this limited scope, because obviously every product has its own limited scope, so it's limited towards that. Then what's the audience reaction? Okay, so whether it's a direct approach or an indirect approach, so how the audience is reacting, whether the audience is interested in knowing about your product more, or whether the audience is just ignoring you or ignoring the ad in the first place. So audience reaction is very important. Then comes the opinion of expertise also, whether let's say a toothpaste or a toothbrush is already approved by this dentist, renowned dentist, or আপনার কোনো skin care product is approved by let's say a dermatologist. Okay, so এগুলো দেখা গিয়েছে যে এ ধরনের credibility plays a very significant role. Also organize the message very wisely. Okay, then write down the message. So in message ক্ষেত্রে obviously use the positive and polite language. Don't push too much, but use positivity and be polite about it. Then also respect the cultural differences even inside your country. It's not have to be outside the country, but even inside your country, respect the cultural differences. And then of course understand the corporate culture, because every organization or corporate has their own culture. Like BRAC University has its own culture, then North South has its own culture. So you need to understand the corporate cultures over here, though these are not corporates, these are universities, but still we have different cultures, right? So when you write down the message, so you need to understand those cultures when you're writing it down, and also establish your credibility. Okay, so I hope you do understand the first part of it. So if you have any question, and please do ask in the live sessions. Okay, thank you.